Hello and welcome to another episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. And it's pretty self-evident what we're reviewing today. So, I don't even know how to fit this guy in frame, but in keeping with our dinosaur theme, which we've had here on this channel recently, because of the latest Jurassic Park, aka Jurassic World movie, that being Fallen Kingdom, kind of gone into a little bit of a dinosaur themed sort of mood recently, and we did the review of that film as well as the Papo T-Rex, and we got some other dinosaurs coming as well. But this just came in, and I figured this really does deserve a little review on the channel. So this is the T-Rex Skeleton by EDU-Toys. I got the box right here, so EDU Toys is on the logo there. I've checked, and this thing is identical to another skeleton, T-Rex skeleton by a brand called Animal Planet. So they look, from photos I've seen, they look exactly the same. So if you're looking to get one of the Animal Planet T-Rexes, giant T-Rex skeletons, then I think you'll get something exactly like this. So let's just see if that fits about in frame. You won't see me very much, but I'm not important in this review. This thing is. So this all made of plastic. I'll just kind of bend the camera down for you guys to see. The whole thing has a nice display base, as you can see there. All made of a nice solid plastic. Down the spine, because this you had to assemble this thing. Down the spine there is an aluminium rod, basically. It goes all the way from inside the head to about here on the tail. A square piece of aluminium. I'll show some close-ups later so you can see that, because one of my negatives about this figure is that in some of the neck has a problem where you can't really push the head in fully, so you can kind of space it out so you can see that piece of aluminium in there, but it's not, you know, it's not the biggest thing. When you see this thing, you're not going to notice that. Oh yeah, so almost all the vertebra and the you know, all these bits, they're separate, so you can kind of wobble them around because they're on this square aluminium rod in there, and they just slot in and they're all numbered. I'd say it was fairly easy to put together. Not too much harder than one of those wooden T-Rex kits. So come to think of it, I have one of those knocking about somewhere, a very big one, so it would be cool to put that in with the size comparison later, but I don't know if I feel like digging that fossil up, if you know what I mean. It's somewhere hidden away. But overall, it's a very impressive figure. It look, from a distance, it looks just like a proper T-Rex skeleton. No problems at all. One thing I do really love about this is it doesn't have any supporting beams holding up the front or anything. It's actually completely balanced on these two legs on the stand, and the only thing that holds it in the stand, it's not like glued into the stand or in pegs or anything. Its feet just go into the... You can take this whole thing off. He's now free from the stand. And the stand, as you can see, just has these footprints, and the feet just slot in there. And this is just a thin piece of plastic that's molded into the shape of a stand. Obviously black plastic. It says made in China. What else would you expect? But it's got this nice mud texture, and it's just dry brushed in that same brown. One of the problems with this figure that I'd say is the dry brushing on it isn't spectacular. It's you can tell it's been cast in black plastic. The plastic is it feels very strong, very durable. It's doing a great job at keeping this thing up, because again, these legs are just made of solid plastic that's in segments that you stick into the body, and you know, it comes apart if you want it to, like you can see there. and these things feel very solid, so that's really good, because this thing, it's not the heaviest figure, but I mean, for its size it's not heavy, but it is still, it's got some weight to it, because it's kind of unavoidable at this scale with all these pieces being solid plastic pretty much. I'll just show you the box for a quick second after I put this leg in. There we go. Some of these joints come out a lot easier than others. That leg is particularly loose, but not that that really has any issue. It stands without a problem, which is really cool. But yeah, like I said, the dry brushing is not that good. It works, it does its job, but you can like, it has no finesse to it. So like it's meant to look like, you know, the brown fossil color, but you can see a small bit of black coming through, but it's not like it feels very pasted on. So where the black's coming through, you can see there's bits with just black coming through, and bits that are just covered in the fully opaque brown paint. There's no bits where it kind of mixes together and forms a different form, a darker brown, and there's like different shading here and there, and there's some places where there should be more black in between the bones, like especially on the bones of the feet here. In between these bones, it would look cool with some dark highlights in between them, just to separate those bones up a little bit, and some more light highlights just dry brushed over, just to add a little more to the paint. Not that not that it really makes any difference. I mean, especially if you have this thing in like next to a window with some really beautiful light on it, it looks really classy, like an actual, you know, museum exhibit. So very well done with that. The ribs look really cool from the top. He's got a very wide rib cage. Looks very natural with all the bumps back here. I think this thing was all hand sculpted as well, which is really impressive with the most of the skeleton, except for I think some, like the skull could have been done a tiny bit better from the front. It looks a little odd from the very front. Just a little bit like the nose looks a bit off or something. I don't know. Could just be me. As well as in this hole here, there's like this little bone bit that goes here, and it's on both sides. I feel like that could have been deeper in the skull, because it looks like a little hole here and a little hole here, when it should be like a big hole with this little bone slightly more on the inside. But I could be wrong as well. I'm no expert, but just from looking at pictures, that's kind of what I imagine. But yeah, you can see there's a lot of detail in this thing. I'll just move it up nice and close for you guys. So 50 pieces. This was on the box. It said this had 50 pieces. Like I said, it was really easy to build. All the spines and stuff are numbered. I think if you're half competent at putting anything together, you'll be able to do this just fine. Especially if you look at a picture of a T-Rex skeleton, although just a picture on the box, you'll be fine. Speaking of the box, I said a second ago I was going to show you guys, but a cool feature of this particular box, as you can see, it's bright yellow, but it has this clear bit here, and if I can fit it in frame, you can kind of see that this was where the skull was going to go, and on the box it has a picture of the skeleton, and it's got like a clear pouch on both sides and even the front, so the skull was going to be mounted and it would look like you can see it through the packaging. On the back you have just a picture of the skeleton there, again sort of in an environment, like a living dead skeleton just walking in amongst a river. You also have a sizing chart, so you can see a person is 1.8 meters there, while this thing would stand 5 meters vertically and be over 12 meters long, where in reality this thing is almost a meter long. It's 91 centimeters from the tip of the tail to the nose. Very big skeleton. That's my favorite thing about this thing. Also, I'm not entirely sure how much this thing goes for, because I got this second hand for very cheap. I got this for like $15 plus shipping, secondhand. So it was a really great deal. I think this one goes for, at least in Australian money, like around $80. So plus shipping. So I'm very lucky to get this thing at the price that I did, because it was next to nothing for a really cool display piece, you know. And one thing, like I was talking about the paint on this, one thing that I was thinking about doing is yeah, going back and redoing that dry brushing if I can be bothered. I think that would really be worthwhile. Again, not essential, because like depending on how much you're going to be staring at this thing, you could just have it just set and forget, and you'll be fine. But you know, the display base is the same color as the body, and every bit of the body has that like same look that you can definitely tell has been painted, which isn't really the best, but it is. But I think I'm like complaining about it more than it actually should be complained about at all. But it just would be that extra bit to make this thing look like it's just, you know, like something you'd buy at a museum from like an actual sort of just like from a museum gift shop, and more like an actual sort of display piece you'd have at home. Oh, and a thing that I really love about this thing is, because all the vertebrae are pretty much separated apart from like two segments in the tail, because like this bit is a solid piece, and about to here is also a solid piece, and somewhere around here is where that piece of metal ends. But aside from that, all of these are pretty much separate. So if you look at that the spine, you can really see they're cut. They don't look like they're melded together or anything, which is a really common thing with a lot of T-Rex and other dinosaur plastic sort of kits and bones. And give you a really nice close-up of that skull there. You can really see what I mean about the paintwork, how you can clearly see that it's just black and has been painted over with a thick, opaque brown paint, whereas like there's no shading to it or anything. It's been dry brushed, but it's been very thickly dry brushed. The ribs look a little better, but you can also see what I mean. But the shape of the bones is really nice. You can see his little arms there, they slot into the ribs nicely, and his big head here. I think in reality the ribs on a T-Rex actually angled back a bit. They kind of angled a little back that way, but you know, who knows in reality. Can't be sure. Any like little misaccuracy is no big deal, because overall this thing is a well, one of the best T-Rex skeletons I could find in terms of accuracy, without going for like there are like if you look on that channel, Jurassic Collectibles, a very good channel. I highly recommend checking it out. He does all sorts of dinosaur related collectible reviews, and there's a T-Rex skeleton that he reviewed on that, or at least unboxed. I forgot the what the brand was, but it was like a 3D printed, as accurate as possible one, and it yeah, that thing was beautiful. It was smaller than this. It was the same scale as the there's this very famous Jurassic Park T-Rex kit. I forgot what the brand is. I'll put it up on screen. So that's the name of that that kit, and it's the same scale as that basically. I'll actually be doing a review. Sorry if to lean over this T-Rex. He's huge. I love this thing. I'll do a size comparison in a bit, so you can really see what this thing looks like next to some of my biggest figures. You know, I've got the Papo T-Rex here just for sizing as well. You can really see the difference. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing a review and sort of a tutorial of how to put together, and how I painted and how we'll paint when it arrives, a bootleg of that kit, because that kit, they haven't made it since before I was born. So like the early 90s is when they stopped making that one, and it's based off a maquette, like an actual maquette of when they're working on the film. And so it's like, you know, somewhere between this one and this one's size, I think. So I'm really excited for when that comes in, because I've had some really good how can I put this thing so it's not on my face while I'm talking? I've had some really good experiences with some of those bootleg vinyl kits from Thailand that you get. So a lot of people will sit here and complain about the whether it's ethical or not, but I'm just here to I'm just here as a what's it called? I just review the kind of stuff that I get, and not everyone has enough money to spend on, you know, like $200 or $300 on an actual one of those kits, when you can spend like where's like $30 on one of those bootleg ones, you know. So it's just for the I'm just here for the, you know, the realistic consumer of collectibles. That's what I want to review, because if it's an option, and if it's good value, and if it's of good quality potentially, then you guys have the right to know, basically. So yeah, so that's just the thing with that. And sorry I'm getting off topic. It's just every time I see a post about that thing, that's the discussion that gets on the way. So I just want to make it very clear from the start my sort of views on that. So, enough about that. Let's get back to this figure. So I'll get rid of Papo here. But oh man, what more to say? There's one little screw hole here, which I could show you. There were more. There we go. So there's one here where the screw goes in to hold in, because there's this one on the piece of metal that goes down the spine. There's this central bit in here under these what are they called? The hip bones. Under those, there's like that bit in there where these vertebrae are fused here, which actually was like that in real life. But under that bit inside here, there's that piece, and that was already attached to the metal rod, and that bit had some screws in it, and they were covered up because you ended up locking these this hip bone, both of these big blades, over it, and so they were covered up. But there's that one little screw hole. Again, no big deal. And yeah, I love the stance that this is in, and overall I'm really happy with this figure. And I think if you're after a T-Rex skeleton, then and you want something really impressive, then this thing will not disappoint. And especially with this base and the way it stands, it's just very, very cool. So again, putting this together, it may vary how difficult it is, because some of the bits are pretty hard to get in. Some go in easy, like some of the leg parts, you have to really force it in. And so, like, you know, if you have like a little kid or something doing this, they might need some help with some bits. And again, I'll just sort of show you what I meant about that neck, how you can see the aluminium rod there. Like, you can see the vertebra fit together perfectly, because they have like little notches they're made to fit together like a glove, basically, with little notches to lock them in place. But they're too loose here, because when you have the last one pressing up against the skull, you have a big gap, like about ½ a centimeter of, you can see right there, the little silver rod. So I try and space them out a little bit, just so there's a little gap between some of them. And again, some of these are like really loose on here, and some like hold their position. So you just gotta kind of work with it until you hide that as best as you can. But again, it's like, it's a bit of a nitpick as well, so don't really worry about that, I'd say. But I did need a lot of work to put that skull on, as far as it does go, so be mindful of that. You may like want to get like a sharp implement and kind of try to scratch out some of the, in the back of the skull there's that hole, because it goes a lot deeper than you can actually force the thing on. So I tried to scratch out some of that, and that helped a bit to get it on just that little bit more than I could tell that it was with the previous owner, because there was actually like paint marks from like the brown paint in that hole that got caked on to the end of this on the end of this aluminium rod. So I end up scratching that off the rod to help it slide on even more, and then scratching inside the head a little bit, and that helped just that little bit. The teeth are nice and sharp, I will say, which is good. They're sharper than the Papo T-Rex. I mean, they're still pretty blunt for the size that they are, but they're nicely sculpted in, and they feel nice and long and proper like they should. Something when I showed somebody this, and the first thing they said was they think that the skull is a bit small, compared to what, like a T-Rex, how it's usually recreated in flesh, especially like the Jurassic Park one, where I can just show you the Papo T-Rex here. But one thing to bear in mind is that if you get rid of this behind this, if you get rid of the back of the head here, that's all that the skull would be, because this bit back here would have the flesh coming over the neck, and that would the neck would of course be joined with more muscle to bulk out that jaw and the back of here, so it would look a lot bigger in real life. So I think this thing is actually accurate, that the skull is not too small or anything like that. The hands also look accurate. They're in a sort of position which you'd expect them to be in. Oh, what else to say? It just looks very skeletal, very awesome. So if you're a fan of dinosaurs, a fan of that sort of thing, fan of paleontology, this is a good one to get your hands on. Before we close off the review, I'll just let you guys see that size comparison, because I'm actually looking forward to seeing how it turns out itself, because I have some pretty cool big figures which this one would look really cool next to. So yeah, I'll see you guys in a sec. Alright guys, so there was a size comparison for the EDU-Toys Tyrannosaurus Rex Skeleton. Yeah, this is an impressive piece, and I'm not disappointed by it in the slightest. I'm very happy to have this one in my collection, especially seeing as I got a really great deal on this thing. And I hope you guys can find one of these too. And I hope this video was helpful, because when I was looking for information about this one, especially since the seller didn't really have any good pictures of this, they just had a picture of it in the box, I couldn't really get a feel for it, and there were no other reviews that I could find of this thing. So I really hope this has been helpful, and that if you are after one of these, you now have a better idea of what it's like in the flesh, or in the bone. And yeah, nothing else to say besides over and out. Stay tuned for some of my other reviews coming out, especially those that some of the other Papo dinosaurs. I'll be getting onto some more kaiju stuff as well really soon. I have a lot of that stuff planned in the future. Of course, that's never going to stop on this channel. And that I don't remember the name of it, but that kit of the T-Rex, that bootleg from Thailand kit of the kits that's of the maquette from Jurassic Park, the first one, of an actual Stan Winston production maquette. It wasn't actually made by Stan Winston, it was made by one of the other people working on the film, but that's one I'm really looking forward to showing you guys, because there's actually some other videos of people putting those together on YouTube, and they're all very interesting. And and yeah, so without further ado, may all your vinyl be irradiated vinyl. Over and out.